3.
I call this Thompson Board of Selectmen meeting to order, March 4th, 2021. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Patty, would you call the roll call of our one-year anniversary since we've had an in-person meeting?
Wow, one whole year. David Douglas.
I am here.
Marie Brilliant.
Here.
Ruth Lyons.
Here.
Matt Nixon.
Here.
Rowan Tufts.
Here.
We have a full house tonight.
Thank you, Patty. Town Manager's report.
Hello, everyone. The Parks and Recreation spring programs are now open for registration. Baseball, softball, t-ball programs, and the Easter egg hunt are only open to Thompson residents. Other programs such as golf lessons, field hockey, cross country, and lacrosse are open for anyone in the school district. Please visit the Parks and Recreation webpage on the town's website for more information and to register. I would like tonight to forward an update from Midcoast Hospital. To date, Midcoast Hospital has administered more than 20,000 COVID-19 vaccinations with more than 8,100 community members receiving both first and second doses of the vaccine. As a whole, Maine has vaccinated almost 70% of individuals over the age of 70. Last week, the state of Maine announced a change in COVID-19 vaccine eligibility, and Maine residents aged 60 and above are now eligible for vaccination. As this next phase opens up, they're prioritizing Maine residents 70 and older who have already pre-registered, and they will also begin scheduling vaccination appointments for residents 60 and over. They informed me to ensure patient and staff safety, vaccination at the Midcoast Hospital Vaccination Clinic located on Brunswick Landing continues to be by appointment only. Anyone in the community, regardless of age or eligibility, can visit their website at www.midcoasthealth.com/vaccine or call 877-780-7545 to use Maine Health's automated COVID-19 vaccine assistant, which helps determine eligibility and allows people to pre-register for vaccine appointment. Once you are eligible and there is an appointment available, you will receive a call back to schedule a vaccine. The CEO, Lois Skillings, reminds me that due to high demand and limited vaccine dose supplies, they're only available to schedule vaccine appointments 1 week in advance. That's all I have tonight. Thank you and have a good night.
Any questions of the manager? Seeing nothing. Tonight, board and committee reports and update. We have an update from the House of Representatives, Denise Tepler. Welcome, Denise.
Good evening. Nice to see you all. I really miss seeing everyone in person, but I'm still delighted to be here. And it sounds like I don't need to update you on the latest vaccine plan because the town manager has already done that. But I would like to sort of give you an update on how the legislature is operating right now. Like you, we are operating remotely for committee hearings, public hearings, and work sessions. So I have been on Zoom all day today since about 9 o'clock this morning. This is, I think, my 5th Zoom meeting. I want to make sure that you all and the public know how to be involved with committee meetings, even though they're virtual right now. So I have a guide to submitting written and oral testimony and what you can expect when you attend a public hearing. First of all, you should know that the legislature has a YouTube channel. So if you don't want to weigh in on an issue, but you just want to listen in, you can go to the YouTube channel and hear what's going on in any committee that's actively meeting, because we broadcast live, just like this meeting. So you can visit any of the committees at the time that they're meeting, or you can actually see recordings of all the past public hearings and work sessions there as well. And that's kind of a new thing because we've never had those recordings available before. So it allows more accessibility in some ways than before, when people had to travel to Augusta, actually attend a hearing or a work session. And it wasn't like you could play back and hear things again, but now you can. So that's a small positive coming out of the situation. If you'd like to give testimony on a bill, when you go to the www.legislature/maine.com website, or I'm sorry, .gov, not .com, you will see a place there that says submit testimony. And when you go into that page and see the submit testimony, you have an opportunity to indicate whether you want to give written testimony or oral testimony, or both. And if you want to give oral testimony, you will be sent a Zoom link so you can become an attendee. Most of the meetings are held in webinar format. So the panel is the committee members and the analyst and the clerk, and the attendees are people who can hear what's going on, and they can be brought into the meeting when it's their turn to speak. So we bring in members of the public who want to testify, the lobbyists we hear from, the department heads. They come into the meeting with the panel. It's just like coming up to the podium in a committee room, and then you have your opportunity to speak your piece in a public hearing. In a work session, generally, people don't have an opportunity to speak, whether we're in person or on Zoom, unless they're called on by the committee. So that's just the way that we normally operate. And if we think of the panel as the committee horseshoe and the attendees as the seats behind the podium, it's very, very similar to a traditional committee meeting. So I hope that if you want to, you'll be able to do that. You can also go into when you go to the legislature page at the top, there's a bar that says committees, and you can click on that and it gives you the opportunity to go into legislative committees. And then you can choose which committee you want to see what's happening in. So if you went to my committee today, you'd see that we had a presentation from the Maine Health Data Organization. And then we had 4 bills that we were working in work session that had been previously heard. And you can pull up the bill, you can pull up the testimony, and all of that is right there on that page available to you. Are there any questions just on that from the board?
Denise, oh, go ahead, Marie.
When, what do you put in the YouTube to watch those things, the committee meetings?
Maine legislature.
Okay.
Denise. Oh,
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I
If you
just
had more
wanted
to
to say one other thing that you should know is if you want to follow the work of a particular committee, you can ask to become a member of the interested parties list for that committee. And you either write to the clerk to make that request, or there may even be, I'm not sure if there's an online place you can click now to join the interested parties list. There may be, but then you will get notification of all the public hearings and work sessions that committee is doing. I like to follow the Appropriations and Financial Affairs Committee because their work is so vital to everything that we do. So I'm a member of the interested parties list for the AFA committee, even though I serve on the Health Coverage, Insurance, and Financial Services Committee. And I assume you guys all know, but I'm just tell you again, I'm the House chair of that committee this year. again.
That was partially my question, Denise.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is that I just wondered what committees you were on, so people at home, is that the one committee you're on?
That is the one committee I'm
Okay.
on. Chairing that committee, which is a fairly busy committee, it's enough.
Okay.
It's enough.
I just wanted to make sure everyone at home, I knew we were advised, but just getting it out to the public.
Yes, thank you, Dave. That's helpful. I should have mentioned that at the beginning. So next week will be the first time since swearing in day that we actually will go into session as a full legislature. We're going to go in on the Wednesday, the 10th and Thursday, the 11th. I asked before I joined you if that was going to be broadcast on YouTube, but I'm sorry, I didn't get an answer. I believe that it will be broadcast on YouTube though, so people can follow the actual work of the legislature. We'll probably have 2 very long days. Usually we don't start session until 10, but being in the Civic Center, which is where we're going to be meeting, we'll start at 9. When we arrive at the Civic Center, we have the same kind of screening that a lot of workplaces or public gatherings do, where they take our temperature and ask us a series of questions about exposure. To me, it feels a little bit like TSA questions about who packed your bag. Maybe not as effective as it could be, but it's something. And unfortunately, the public is not allowed to attend in that setting, which, I think we're really struggling to make sure that people know how to follow us, because it is your government, and it's very, very important that people know how to contact their legislator, that they know how to follow what's going on in their state government. So that's what's happening next week. And since committees have been meeting, we will have quite a number of bills that have piled up that have passed out of committee, either negatively, ought not to pass, or ought to pass. And we will be voting on those bills that have already moved out and up as a whole legislature. And of course, things have to go back and forth between the House and the Senate. So there'll be some odd breaks. So if you're watching on YouTube, you'll know that if we end for a while, it's usually because we're waiting for the Senate to process information in the House, or the House is waiting, or the Senate is waiting for us to process information. And it goes back and forth, and the papers have to be prepared for each. We do have a 100-page calendar for the 2 days, which is about 3 times as much as we usually have for a single day. So I anticipate being at the Civic Center from 9 probably till, hopefully not later than 8 o'clock at night, but at least till then. And maybe later on the second night. We'll see. I hope not. But that's the way it happens sometimes.
Those aren't bad hours considering it's been a year.
That's true in some ways, although it's only been a year for meeting as a full legislature, not for the work that we're doing, because so much of our work is really committee based. And my committee's been working since we were allowed to, on the 15th of January, meeting twice a week for a full day of meetings. And that means we do scheduling and preparation on other days. And we've also had presentations from a number of the entities that we have oversight of, such as the Bureau of Insurance, the Office of Professional and Financial Regulation. Those are the biggies. Oh, and the Maine Health Data Organization. Yes, so that's what's up. We'll be hearing a big bill called LD1, which provides, basically puts into Maine law a number of the provisions that the governor had as part of her emergency directives, so that they will become actual legislative law and not just emergency declarations. And there are still a lot of bills in process. I have right now 17 bills, more than I've ever had before, but many of them are department bills that department heads came to me as committee chair and asked me if I would sponsor. Yes, is it okay if I call on Ruth, Dave?
Yeah, go ahead. I was just going to open it up to any questions. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so
Hi,
question.
Denise. Yeah, Denise, today, all day on the news, there's been emphasis on that 15-cent tax if you buy a can of Lysol or wipes, bleach, Clorox wipes, and nobody seemed to be aware that that was put on that, but they did a whole investigation on it tonight, and it said it was strictly the legislature that did it. Did you know anything about that?
I'm really not sure what you're referring to, Ruth, and I haven't had an opportunity to hear the news today. I mean, are we talking
It's
about a product stewardship?
All products that have so-called environmental impact on it, household cleaners, all have 15-cent tax on it. So if you bought 10 cans, it'd be 15 cents.
Okay, yes, I think that's from several years ago, that law. So
It was just implemented.
okay, so it's probably from just implemented, means.
And they had people call in the news station. That's why they did interviews, people that had noticed it on their bills.
Just implemented probably means that it was passed in the 129th legislature.
I think
And
it
that
was. Yeah.
the Department of Environmental Protection had to draw up a series of rules to implement it. So that's usually what happens, why something might be delayed in implementation, because it requires rules. And maybe MRS if it's an actual tax that's collected at the register as well.
It is at the register.
Yeah, I don't know that much about it, but I understand the need to steward certain products that have environmentally harmful effects potentially. And maybe to encourage and steer people towards products that don't have those effects.
And it said that $85,000 has been collected and it's gone to the University of Maine for research.
Okay.
So I'm an informed citizen.
That's not such a bad thing. Okay.
So thank you.
Sure.
Thank-
I'll look into it more for you, Ruth, if you'd like. Okay.
Am I good?
Yep.
Hi, Denise.
Howard.
As far as LD1 is concerned, what are some examples of the emergency, I would say, elements that can be considered to be put into law permanently?
A lot of them have to do with requiring insurance companies to cover screening and testing. We are making sure that insurance companies will cover you and can't deny your claim if you have a COVID test. The exception in the bill is for the kinds of tests that colleges are giving, like a regular screening test. Those aren't necessarily covered by insurance. They should be paid for by the entity that's issuing them, like I believe Colby is paying for a whole series of tests for its students. But for the individual who's going to get a COVID test, the bill requires the insurance companies to cover that cost for COVID testing and other kinds of COVID screening.
So it's COVID specific, or is it more pandemic specific?
It goes beyond COVID in that it's kind of a general preparation for pandemics of the future as well. We've kind of tried to think through that and not have it just apply right at this time, but maybe in the future as well, for any time that an emergency is declared.
Yeah, that was what I was wondering. It seemed like limiting it would really be self-defeating because you have to bring it up again in the future. Well,
Right.
hopefully not, but maybe.
And there's a 180-day prescription piece in it as well that requires insurers to cover 180 days of prescriptions, whereas now they'll only cover as much as 90. There are carve-outs for any kind of harmful prescriptions like opioids. Those don't go in that category.
So if the insurance company wants to be licensed in Maine, they have to adhere to these rules if adopted.
You know, Roland, I'm going to have to check and see whether this applies to more than just the individual and small group markets, because I don't think we can force ERISA plans to do it, for example.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. It's got to be pretty detailed. So anyway, that's very helpful. So thank you.
No problem.
Anyone else got questions for Denise? Matt?
Denise, I was just looking at that bill as you were talking, and it looks like there's a final, I think you summed up part A and B pretty well, and then part C was authorizing the delivery of healthcare services through telehealth by audio only telephone.
We pulled that section of the bill.
Oh, really? It's still on the website.
Yeah, well, that's the original bill, and we had a sponsors amendment, so we pulled the telehealth section because it's very, very complicated, and we have a number of telehealth bills. So we'll deal with telehealth when we get to some of these other bills. But there was a provision in there about telephonic telehealth that's very controversial, and how long we want to allow telephonic telehealth. Certainly people up in the county and in other rural parts of Maine like telephonic telehealth at this point, but it doesn't always meet HIPAA regulations, and it can be complicated in terms of whether or not insurers should be paying the same for a telephone visit. Also, we want doctors to continue to provide free telephone responses to patients like they do now, and not make that a cost center. So there are a lot of fairly complicated issues in the idea of telephonic telehealth that we need to work through.
Cool. Thank you.
Looking around, anything else for Denise?
Ruth has her hand up still.
Yeah, Ruth, your hand, are you? Nope, you're good.
Oh, you're done. Okay.
Thank you, Denise. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. Please be in touch if you have any questions going forward. I'm happy to have them. And I just want to say, so people know, I answer my home phone, 729-4018. If you need help with anything involving the pandemic, please give me a call.
Thank you, Denise. We are on, oh, sorry. We are on to consent calendar. Nope, sorry, I went too fast. Correspondence. If you have any questions or comments on the agenda topic, email them to the town, or you can call 373-5090 and we'll wait for that. But as we do that, we do have one letter we received today from Tori Ryan over on Barrows Drive. Sum up Tori's, she had some concerns about some of the signage on near her home on the one-way section, some of the speeds, and asked if there was things that from a municipal level we could take care of. I drove around today over to her neighborhood when I got back into town and looked at some of the things, and come to find out, the town manager and the public works are already on it. So if they wanted to, it looks like Dennis, you're going to be the one to say something.
I as well drove by the area, Dave, and we have signs here in-house that we'll be putting up tomorrow to help hopefully alleviate that traffic issue over there where folks are traveling down a dead-end road and don't realize it. So we'll get some new signs up over there and do what we can to help that problem.
Perfect. Thank you, Dennis. It's not always asking you shall receive, but that was a good one. Anyone else have any correspondence? I'm not seeing any phone calls. Nothing.
I had some communication with Saginaw County earlier this week, but it's related to agenda item 2116, so I can just wait until then if you want. I think you're muted, Dave.
I don't see any phone calls. I don't see any attendees with hands up. I don't see anybody else. So I am going to move. We're a year in. I think people are fast now. Consent calendar, approval of the minutes of the regular selectmen meeting, February 18, 2021. I make a motion to accept them as submitted.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Unanimous. New business 2116, consideration any appropriate action on replacing public safety radios. And I see Chief Hagan already popped up, so away it goes, sir.
Good evening. Thank you. Mark Hagan, Chief of Police. Mike Labby and I are here to talk to you tonight about a little communications equipment issue that we're having both at the PD and the fire department. So when I first came here in the fall, a lot of the officers were complaining about our inability to communicate not only with each other, but with Saginaw Communications because of the age of our equipment. So what we did was we conducted an audit, and what we found was the majority of our, not only our portables, but our radios that are in the cruisers are roughly 10 years of age, and they're operating beyond their life expectancy. In addition to that, they're no longer supported by the manufacturer, and it's difficult at best to find some replacement parts for them, which has forced us over the last couple of months, a couple of our portables have died, and we've been forced to cannibalize from other additional radios that we had. Also, they found that 75% of our batteries failed when we were going through this audit on the tests. So we spoke to the fire department, who was having the same issue with their equipment, and we started talking about the issues. Now, to be honest with you, the issue is twofold. One is the equipment that I'm talking about. The other, as far as communications goes, is our radio coverage. But I think you're all aware that Saginaw County is working on that, and they're looking at potentially putting new repeaters up in various spots in town, not only in our town, but in Saginaw County. So that issue in particular is going to take a little while to get addressed, however. And in the meantime, our radios aren't getting any younger. So with radio communications being so critical to our, and our ability to communicate is crucial. And when it isn't communicate, when we can't communicate, we're putting our personnel and the public at risk. So what we would like to do is purchase new equipment. So we have all reached out to 3 different companies that are within an appropriate distance to be able to respond in a timely manner if we had any kind of issues here at the station or with our vehicles, whether it's cruisers or fire equipment. We received 2 bids. One of the companies didn't return a bid, and what we would like to do is go with the low bid, which happens to be the company that we're using right now for our radio communications equipment on both the fire and the police side. They were low bid by roughly $3,500. And we have been told that there is, the town has FEMA emergency funding account that is designed for this type of purchase. So what we would like to do is be able to purchase new equipment for both the fire and the police department.
Thank you, Chief. Derek, I see you popped up. Did you have something or were you just prepped?
I'm just prepping in case there's any questions.
What's the amount in the FEMA account?
Well, the amount we have now, this is prior to COVID, was $170,000. Maybe closer to 180.
Okay.
And for years, this has specifically been targeted for radios, whether it be receiver transmitters or portables or anything that we need to respond to in an emergency situation.
Any questions looking around the board? Go ahead, Roland.
I don't, well, I have one question, but it's more on sort of prior to this, but I think this is great. I think it makes a lot of sense, but I'm surprised because we're buying the equipment from the same vendor that we bought the old one from. I'm most surprised the vendor didn't check in to say, hey, why are you guys still using 10-year-old radios? Or somebody did, and we just never heard about it.
I'll speak to that, Roland, and I'm not being facetious here, but we have a new police administration that's helping us out here in identifying these problems that need to be rectified.
I was surprised. You think the vendor would have seen a business opportunity 5 years ago, so who knows? But I'm glad it's being addressed now. Thank you.
I will be the rule follower. I do want to remind that when bids go out, oh, Matt and Marie have hands up. Why won't this show on my screen? We'll go with Marie first. I'll hold my comments. Go ahead, Marie.
How many radios will this cover, that price?
For the police department, we are looking at a total of 18 portable radios. And for the cruisers, I believe it's 12 mobile radios for the cruisers.
Can answer for the fire department if you want. The fire department has also the 16 mobiles. I think it's 22 portables.
Good, Marie. Matt?
Thank you, sir. Let's see. Just a really quick question, and then just that commentary earlier I was talking about. So is the $4,000 difference thereabouts, is that sort of like a setup fee I'm imagining here? So I'm thinking if RCM's already got our contract and Durago's coming in $4,000 more, that kind of sounds like a new provider setup fee sort of thing, which is fine. I'm just curious if that's what the big difference was.
No, it was more an apples to oranges type thing. They're selling different equipment. They're suggesting different pieces for our radios. It's like two different brands of cars, basically.
All right.
He's correct on that.
So my communication earlier this week, when I had read your report, Chief, and you actually touched on it a little bit, your report had mentioned how we have dead spots in town, and I'd remembered on the Budget Advisory Committee for the county last week, we had been briefed by the administrator on how they're going to be upgrading towers as part of this year's work plan. And I was not sure if, when I reached out, I had asked the administrator if she had made Thompson aware or public safety officials aware of the plans for upgrading local public safety officials. And she had said that she had spoken with 2 members from the town public safety. I wasn't sure of the timing though, and that's really where I'm going with this, because I wasn't sure if you were around when the county had reached out.
Yes, sir. They reached out.
I think you were in a different county at that time.
Yeah, they reached out probably 2, maybe 3 months ago. So we actually, the vendor that they're looking at for everything has been in touch with us and spoken to both police and fire. I'll speak for Mike on this with regard to our issues, and they've been around town doing some testing.
Okay, cool. All right, that was it. Good stuff. Otherwise, I think this is a pretty straightforward expense as far as I'm concerned. Makes sense. Glad you went out to bid too. Good stuff.
And if anybody is wondering, we've also already put it into our capital improvement plan for roughly 6 years out, we're going to start replacing the radios so that we're not in a position where we have to try to replace everything all at once in the future.
All right. Just because it's important for our perspective, I just want to make sure we understand when bids go out, the board needs to be aware and needs to approve the bid process. This is more than needed. I get it. There was a bid process, but just as a gentle reminder that we need to do that. I have nothing to add. I think this is well worth it and needs to happen. And it's great that we have money sitting in the FEMA fund to do it. So I will make a motion that we approve the bid from RCM for $77,386.71. Do I have a
Second.
second? You got a motion and a second. Patty, this is you.
Okay, I need a approval or a disapproval. David Douglas,
Approve.
Marie Brilliant,
Approve.
Ruth Lyons,
Approve.
Matt, I didn't hear you.
Approve. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you say my name.
Roland Tuss,
Approve.
that's unanimous approval.
Thank you all. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief. Next up, 21-17, consideration and appropriate action on posting the list of roads from March 8, 2021 to April 30, 2021, or sooner, if conditions allow. Dennis, all yours.
Good evening. This is our seasonal type road postings due to the frost going out of the ground now and the integrity of the roads being compromised. So we're just trying to protect the integrity of our roads and the tax dollars investments into our roads by posting them to heavy truck traffic. They're the same roads as in the last year. I can go over them or you folks have a list of them as well. There's a permit process in place so folks can get a permit to access these roads under conditions. So it's not like they're out of luck until the end of April. That's not what we're saying here. We're just trying to govern them a little bit better and supervise what's on them so we don't have damage done to our roads.
Any questions? And Dennis, they just call your office and it works the permit out that way.
They can, and they're available online as well.
Okay, perfect. Seeing no questions, I make a motion that we agree to post the roads contained in the memo from the Public Works Director effective March 8, 2021 through April 30th, 2021 or sooner if conditions allow.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor, that's you, Patty. You got to do that. I got to stop.
Hey, this is fun. David Douglas,
In favor.
Marie Brilliant,
In favor?
Ruth Lyons,
Favor.
Matt Nixon,
In favor.
and Roland Tuss.
In favor.
Again, unanimously in agreement.
Thank you, Patty. 21-18, consideration any appropriate action on the authorization to spend money from the traffic impact fee account on Monument Place and Second Street intersection. There's Rod. Oh,
All set?
yep.
So hopefully everyone got to see the memo. And I'll briefly give some background there. If you're familiar, the Aroma Joe's mixed-use development at the corner of 196 and 201 was approved with Maine Department of Transportation permitting. They're stepping through that final process, and as such, staff have met and are proposing an enhanced improvement at the intersection of Second and Monument as described in the memo. I do have a screen share that Matt had requested. Ariel, do you want me to share?
Yes, please.
Okay. So you can see what I want to say with this is conceptual. This was requested to understand what the cost difference would be. What was permitted through MDOT was just crosshatch striping at the intersection. And what wasn't stated in the memo, the MDOT permit is predicated upon 130 peak hour trips being borne by Aroma Joe's drive-through services. So there's a fairly large impact to that intersection that MDOT identified, even though it's a local road, that needed some sort of traffic management. So what we've come up with here is something that really takes care of those peak hour trips being in the morning, where Copper Kettle would have a lot of trips coming in and out too, some conflict there. So looking to enter and exit that site more efficiently and safer. Also the pedestrian improvement as well. The cost difference was, I think it's $34,000 for this. Part of that is because this impacts some of the corner drainage there. It improves some drainage issues that are going on right now. Or this would, if it goes in, improve that. And the striping alone was 17. So roughly $20,000, $15,000 to $20,000 difference to improve this to this concept here. I will say this is conceptual, not exactly the design that would be implemented. Would go through pre-construction, have our peer review engineer look it over, make sure that when something goes in, it would be construction plan engineering details at that point. But I'd be happy to take some questions. Do you want me to leave this on the screen?
Yeah, please, for me. Let me, guys, raise your hands because I'm can't find hands tonight.
You may have to scroll images, Dave, because since I'm sharing screen.
Yeah. All right, I got everyone. Anyone got any questions of Rod? Rod, I do. So I've seen something similar to this happen in Bath, and I'm looking at Copper Kettle's parking lot, understanding this is the right of way and it's our right to do this. Though I want to make sure if we're putting a sidewalk, essentially a curb right in that area, the vehicle traffic, how much are we impeding what they've done in the past? Is there enough room for cars to get in and back out? And
yeah, so we've checked that out. What they have here, and by code, they have 50 feet, roughly. So a stall depth for parking is 18 feet, and then a 2-car drive aisle is 24 feet.
Okay.
So they have that. I have met, so the owner is Lee Gagney from Lee Tire. I've chatted with him. And that's what I talked about, this being conceptual, because I think I want to, when we get into this and we get into the pre-construction meeting, it really will be what the access will be on his lot right here, what the access will be. So there'll be details that aren't really shown here. But I think this provides us enough cost estimate to be safe in the ballpark range that we've been provided. But Dave, I share those concerns, I guess is what I'm getting at in a long-winded way.
No, as long as it's on our radar. I've just seen it happen before, and it creates if we didn't have those conversations, it creates a situation between business and town. Disgruntledness. Matt?
So, Rod, thank you a ton for putting this together, because when I was out there, Ruth and I were out there this morning walking around looking at stuff, and I was completely turned around when I was explaining this to her. So I feel like a complete fool, but I'm glad that you put this overlay on, because I completely get what you're trying to do now, or at least what you're trying to present. So We did have a good walk though. It was nice this morning, brisk. I'm looking at the sidewalks in the picture. So what we're seeing here in terms of not the actual parking lot, the impervious surfaces in the around the for the parking lot or the circle there or anything like that, but you're talking about the 34 that will cover the sidewalks on the outside all the way up to the intersection with 196. Is that correct? Like the shaded gray area?
No,
No.
we're talking this section where the cursor is now here.
Gotcha. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I was way turned around this morning.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, sorry about that.
No worries. That's okay. That was my own
Yep.
bad interpretation.
The, in the memo, what we were trying to explain, the perpendicular alignment of this second street coming out. I mean, if you imagine cars coming in and, if I remove the, and just show the aerial, this is just all pavement here.
Yeah, I get
So it's,
totally get it now. This is really
Right.
helpful. Yeah, good stuff. I have no other questions. I just wanted to point out my foolishness.
well, you're not wrong, Matt. There are improvements happening over at 190.
So Rod,
Mm.
the estimated at 34,000, the less effective 17. Who's picking up what of, so are we picking up the difference between the 17 and the 34?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's the ask tonight, and that the thing that I'd add there, because it's conceptual, I would go with the not to exceed number. I would request the not to exceed number of 20, just so that in case there are some requests of the abutting landowners, we want to accommodate those.
Ruth?
I just want to say, going up there today, even though we didn't have the absolute correct, it was very helpful to me to see even where Aroma Joe's was going to go, how it would impact Copper Kettle and things like that. So it certainly was a good trip.
Thank you. Any other questions before we make a motion here? Yeah, nothing. So I will make a motion that we allow up to $20,000 to be used from the traffic impact fee account for work to be done at the Monument Place and Second Street intersection for improved sidewalks and intersection.
Second.
Motioned and seconded. Patty?
Mr. Douglas, how do you vote?
I approve.
Marie, brilliant.
In favor?
Ruth Lyons,
Approve.
Matt Nixon,
In favor.
and Roland Test.
In favor.
Unanimously in favor.
Thank you, Rod.
Thank
Thank you, Patty.
Thanks.
Next up, 21-19, consideration any appropriate action to accept a gift of $800 to improve the Thompson Police Department's firing range. Mr. Waltz, it looks like your camera's up. That gets you.
Good evening, everyone. So we had a phone call from an individual who would like to remain anonymous just because he likes to make his gifts quietly. But he would like to donate $800 for Chief Hagan to use as he sees fit to improve the police firing range, and would like permission to accept it and allow Chief Hagan to expend it.
Any questions? Nope. I will make a motion to accept an anonymous gift of $800 to be used as Chief Hagan deems most appropriate to improve the Thompson Police firing range.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Patty?
David Douglas,
In favor.
Marie Brilliant,
In favor, but I do have a question.
Okay, sorry. So I'll stop here. Go for it, Mark. Go for it, Marie.
So does this have anything to do with Brunswick not being part of our shooting range, or are they still?
Brunswick is no longer using the range, but there was a lot of shared equipment and some, or I should say some of the equipment was Brunswick owned that Brunswick took with them. So this will be a chance for Chief Hagan to get some equipment from Thompson to either build backstops or get special targets or things like that.
Okay, good. Thank you.
All right. Patty, you want to pick up?
Okay, we
Favor.
have David Douglas is in favor, Marie Brilliant, and Ruth Lyons is in favor. Matt Nixon.
In favor.
Okay, Roland Tufts,
In favor.
unanimously in favor, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Patty. Item 21-20, consideration and any appropriate action on narrowing the road on Elm Street Extension. I guess I get
Steve, I
to,
just,
oh, go ahead, Matt.
I was gonna try and catch you before you read that. But that comment that, or the question that Marie just asked, made me think, is there anything else out there that may have been taken that we might need to think about replacing?
He actually, I think, got a donation from Home Depot too already, that some building materials they offered. So I think he's got the backstops done, and I'm not quite sure how he intends to use this money, but sure, if people wanted to donate more, I'm sure we could find a use for it, but I don't think there's a glaring need that we have to, expend money on right now.
Okay, cool. Just want to make sure.
All right, thank you. Elm Street Extension. You want me to say anything, Mark, or do you have a whole plan in mind?
If you want, you can introduce your great idea, and then I'll tell you what the staff did with it.
So several months ago, we received a communication from a gentleman on Winter Street discussing traffic speeds coming down Elm Street Extension, the crosswalk that went from one side of the beginning of Winter Street to the other. And we had talked I had made in mention as we were discussing that letter, filling in the large chunk of tar area and perhaps using that to tighten up lanes. A couple weeks back, coming from the back of the mall, and after the water main break, the dirt that always seems to part way to the edge of the lanes made a very easily pictured island area to accomplish what we were looking for. So I put my iPhone drawing skills to work, and I submitted an idea, copied you guys on it, and kicked it over. And then the team that knows what they're doing went to town. So I'll leave you guys to it.
So what we did is we convened a meeting of Dennis and then Andrew and Rod, and we all looked at it and liked the idea. One suggestion they had to improve it was because some people do, say, come from Main Street or the other part of Elm Street and then head out down the extension, but then want to reverse direction. It's either to get to some of the properties, the couple that are sitting on the rest of Winter Street, or maybe for some reason want to get back to Main Street. They thought it would be good to have what they call a slip lane. So what they did is the island is more in the middle of the road as opposed to extending all the way to the guardrail. This allows traffic to still turn around. We've showed it to Chief McLaughlin, and he's told us the width he would want to have to make sure the street was. So we'd take that into account. And then Andrew did the sketch that you see at the end of my memo of basically a triangle. Then we gave some thought as to what we would suggest to do in the triangle. One possibility might be just to put grass, but the drawback of that is that with the sand and salt and things, it's probably going to have to be redone each year. And then it's going to have to be mowed at some point. Another idea was maybe we do like Brunswick does, and you'd have flowers that you just plant in the dirt there. There too, you're going to have to change out the dirt. So another idea we had is we thought of putting, say, paving it, but then stamping the pavement, say, to look like bricks, and then paint, say, a brick-like color, so it at least would look like it's bricks there. And then we could get some planters in there that would make them low so they don't interfere with the traffic turning or something. But then we could have businesses or a person that wants to sponsor them, and then Dennis would pull the planters out in the wintertime so that they're not there if someone slides down the hill to run into them or something. But it could beautify things a little, and if the planter idea catches on from your last agenda item, that might be another place for, say, a planter is in that little bump out that's now going to be at the end of 2nd Street. And we might have other places around town, and we could have businesses adopt them and have some nice scenic areas.
I do appreciate the slip lane because it bails me out a little bit, as my wife told me to stop being such a pain in the butt when I suggested this. She thought it was going to make it difficult for people to take a turn back onto that little section of Winter Street, so it bails me out. And I love the ideas of the planners, and I get why we wouldn't throw grass in there because it would just be a sanded, salted mess, and the trying to park there to try to mow it would be miserable, and just it makes sense to do what you guys have proposed. Any questions or comments from the board? Or Dennis, you have more to add?
I just want to add that it also kind of comes back to some of the comments that Matt Nixon, Selectman Nixon had made a few months ago when this came up as well. He and I talked that night at that meeting about in regards to narrowing the road, and this would help do that as well to help traffic calming type scenarios. So it, you know, we're listening. We're listening to a lot of folks on this idea.
Yeah, I think that is the win out of it, right? Hopefully slow people down that whole, I'm sure it's because it's a football field of tar right now. Everyone feels they can go any speed they want. And when it's a little tighter, it'll be a little bit, force you to slow down. And, oh, go ahead, Matt.
Mark, I only had one question, but you sort of answered it earlier. I was sort of wondering about, I mean, the design in the document that we have is green, obviously, but I was going to advocate for granite curb with imprinted brick. You've already mentioned the imprinted brick. Let's go for the granite curb, make it look nice. I do like the planter thing, though. That's a good call, too.
And I'll let Dennis jump in. It's a little more for the curbing, but you know, this whole project, Dennis thinks can be done pretty cost effectively, especially if we coordinate it with when the water district's doing their work to clean up the area. Dennis, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I might add that I might suggest that we go to cement curbing, do concrete instead of the granite. It'd be less than granite. Something that we could probably do more in-house, and it would hold up better than the hot top curbing would do. So I'd kind of compromise and ask to go to cement curbing there.
You're the engineer. I'm just talking about aesthetics. So by all means, I certainly acquiesce to your expertise.
I like that cement curbing. Dennis, you did years ago a test out on Forside Road, I think might have been your first area. And it's held up well. It looks good. It's better than that pavement look, I think. I like that. Any further questions? Seeing nothing. Let me see what we got to write here. I make a motion that we approve the plan, the action on narrowing the road on Elm Street Extension with an island, and go forward with the community planter ideas in that location.
Second.
Motioned and seconded. Patty, that's you.
David Douglas,
In favor.
Marie Brilliant,
In favor?
Ruth Lyons,
In favor.
Matt Nixon,
In favor.
and Roland Taps.
In favor.
Unanimously in favor.
Thank you, Patty. Thank you, Dennis. 21-21, consideration any appropriate action on appointment of a town attorney / firm. Mark.
We'll keep this quick. We'd like to have the current town attorney we've been using, Bernstein Sure, continue. We've been happy with them. They have a lot of attorneys with expertise in a lot of different areas. So we're able to easily get someone, whether it be employment law or TIF, the TIF attorneys we've been using a lot to work on the affordable housing lately. Land use issues, pretty much anything. They're a big law firm, a lot of good, sharp professionals, and we'd like to continue to use them.
Any questions?
I know several folks from Bernstein Sure, and they're exceptional individuals. No issues with the company. I've actually never heard a bad thing about Bernstein Sure. I think it's a good choice.
I think so. We've used them for a long time and they're really easy to work with.
Great. All right. Move to appoint the law firm of Bernstein and Scher as the town's attorney.
Second.
Motioned and seconded. Patty, take us home.
Gladly, David Douglas,
In favor.
Terry Brogan,
In favor.
Bruce Lyons,
In favor.
Matt Nixon.
In favor.
Thanks, Roland.
In favor.
And that's unanimously in favor.
Excellent. Thank you, Patty. Thank you, Mark.
Hey,
Someone,
wait, before we
Oh.
adjourn, I didn't really know where to bring this up earlier. It wasn't really in communications, but it's just an FYI for you folks, because it's sort of, this conversation, there are things attached to this, but it's just an update, really. I was sitting in on a bill yesterday waiting for my turn to testify, and there was a bill that came up, LD 434, an act to clarify the bonding authority of counties for maintenance projects, for capital maintenance projects. And essentially the bill is looking to give counties the ability to borrow up to 1/10 of 1 mil based on the county's property valuation without going out to referendum. And the example that was being used numerous times yesterday was counties just want the municipalities, the same right that municipalities with the city council have, to be able to borrow without going out to referendum every time they need the funding. And it just struck me as ironic, given the conversation we've been having, and it's also something we clearly need to keep an eye on, because this could be another expense that we see in our tax bill further down the road that we don't have any say on. I asked what, or the question was asked what 1/10 of 1 mil was. Obviously, it's going to be subjective for every county, but just something to be aware of and something that may impact us going forward if this moves any farther in the legislature.
well, if you would keep an eye on that, Matt, we bring it up during communications, because it's even, it doesn't matter if it's sent to you or whatever. If you
Yep.
just have something you want to bring up, bring it to us, because it certainly is something that we need to keep an eye on anytime.
Sure.
Public representatives don't have to go to the public, and they just get to spend money without anything. That's a dangerous road to go down. So make
Good
sure to follow on
information.
that and give it to us as we go through.
I totally will.
Excellent. Motion to adjourn.
So
Second.
moved.
We're going. Everyone's in favor. Thank you, folks. Have a good night.
Thank you.